Hello, everybody. That's awesome to have you here. I'm glad that finally we're having this conversation about foods that make us more nourished, especially when it comes to nourishing our brain, nourishing our mind, and cooking in a way that's brain smart, but also very simple. And this comes from my longstanding interest now in brain health, especially since my father passed away with dementia in 2020, and also a little bit with my frustration with some of the material that's out there. I love the work that many of the lifestyle medicine doctors like the Shirzai and Dr. Greger are putting out there. And there's beautiful cookbooks that they've created. And when I look at the cookbook, I'm like, oh, this is complicated. And it's not that it's super difficult, but I can imagine that someone who is tired or struggling with dementia in one way or another, as a caregiver, or feeling that maybe they're having a little bit of brain fog or some symptoms that they're worried about, maybe they don't have the energy or the bandwidth to deal with all those new recipes. And I want to inspire you and to empower you to cook super simple food, the kind of food that may not be the most exciting to look at on Instagram, but that will truly nourish you and nourish your brain. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to be cooking a bunch of things, but I'll also want to talk about the foundations, what's evidence-based about what we know from the science is good for brain health in terms of food. There's other components. I'm going to talk about that really briefly as well. And I'm going to do 3 little demos that will give you some inspiration, I hope, and give you permission to keep things simple. So we're going to look at that all together. And I want you to do a little bit of work today too. You're not going to be actually cooking yourselves today, unless you want to, I guess. But I want you to start turning your gears, start thinking about what this will look like for you. So what we're going to do here right now, and I want to say in particular, welcome to everybody who is watching this as the replay. There's some people here in the room, in the Zoom room right now, but there's also going to be a replay on YouTube. So you are invited, when I say put it in the chat, you're invited to put your own reflections in the YouTube comments. That would be fantastic to keep others engaged as well. Whew. Okay, there's a lot going on here because I've started cooking a few things, so it all comes together all at the same time. I want you now to pull out a piece of paper and a pen, or you can write in the Zoom chat or in the YouTube comments. I want you to spend just a moment, and I will tell you when to go, answering the following question. Imagine your life when you are 80 years old. I'm assuming nobody here is 80. If someone is 80, then imagine your life when you're 95. What do you want your days to feel like? How do you want to be showing up for yourself and for others? So I want you to think about that. You can write something in the chat, in the comments, but don't hit enter yet if you're watching this live. I'm going to give you the time it takes to chop these potatoes in half. So the question is, when you are 80 years old, what do you want your life to look like? And how do you want to be showing up for yourself and for others around you? You can write it in the Zoom chat, but do not hit enter just yet. I will tell you when to do it. That was not very long. Chopping those potatoes, that will be part of my dinner demonstration. And I'm just going to throw them along with some onion here. So I have these little potatoes that will be part of my dinner. And for those who are curious, I'm also cooking some quinoa back there using the pasta method, because I don't like to be dry cooking quinoa with just the right volume of water. That did not work too well for me. So I'm just going to add also these onions. Onions are part of the allium family, and they're really good for our brain. So I'm just tossing all this together in the air fryer here. I'm going to start the air fryer again for about 20 minutes. That should be good enough. So I'll put this away for now. And okay, so if you're attending live, now is going to be the time to put your comments in the chat, answer the question, what do you want your life to be like when you're 80 years old? In 3, 2, 1, hit enter. Oh, I love looking at this. So I want my life to be vibrant, filled with friends and family. I want to be independent in my own home. Yes, that's really valuable. In control, energetic, pain-free. I love this. And those are all goals that eating plants can help you with. Wake up with energy, clear-headed, curious, looking forward to the day. Yes, and I want joy in relationships and the ability to serve others, a clear mind, functioning body. Thank you for sharing this. Everything everyone else said, Em said, yes, that is so true. I love this. And that is also how I want to feel when I'm 80 years old. And the good news is that is absolutely attainable. There's so much negativity in our society about aging. We tend to think that it's inevitable that we are going to become decrepit or something. Unfortunately, the reality is that I think, if I remember correctly, 40% of people over 85 years old do have cognitive impairment, do have some form of dementia, but that is not inevitable. That does not have to be that way. And I think the number is 10% of people over 65. And yes, 40% of people over 80 or 85, something like this. Anyway, it's depressing, but it doesn't have to be that way. I think we are unfortunately seeing the consequences in old age of a lifetime of unfortunate habits. Our whole society is organized for convenience, not for nourishment. And we have to take matters in our own hands and feed ourselves really well. And that's what we're here to talk about today. It does not have to be complicated. It can be very simple to create everyday food that supports our brains. Have faith, my friends, we can do this. Food is a big part of the equation. It is not the only thing, though, and I want to honor and mention that there's some other pillars of longevity and health. Exercise is really important. And there's always a bit of a debate about, is it exercise first or nutrition first? I think they really go well together, because once you're nourished, you have more energy, it's easier to do exercise. And when you're doing exercise, you feel more righteously hungry in a way that's healthy and making you want to get really nice nourishment in yourself. So those two things really work together. Start wherever you need to start and take small steps one at a time. Stress management and mindfulness is another important pillar. Sleep, that's the one that's hard for me. Community connection, being part of a community, having connections with others, a sense of purpose, also very important, and substance avoidance, meaning avoiding tobacco and alcohol and all these other substances that are not doing us any favors. Stop. That is my timer right there that just went off for the quinoa. I'm going to attend this for 1 second. I would be curious to hear if you want to put it in the comments below or in the chat. What is your personal objective when it comes to nutrition? What would you like to do to improve your nutrition just a little bit? My bet is that you already know a lot of what is good for you. You're here to top it up a little bit, but I know you already know a lot. So please share that in the comments while I attend my quinoa right here. Oops. And I made the quinoa using the pasta method, and I mixed it up with some red lentils. Whoops. And I'm going to use this. I'm just removing some of the water. If you haven't seen me do this before, I'm cooking whole grains using the pasta method. And I'm teaching all about this in my new course that's called Cooking Without Thinking. So I'm just going to put this back here to rest and become nice and fluffy. Shaking my potatoes, and I'm back. All right, that's awesome. Okay, so what is next? Oh, I want to say too, while we're here, about those other pillars of lifestyle, healthy lifestyle, other than nutrition, that are important. I encourage you to sign up for my Healthy Summer Bingo that is running until the end of summer. Of course, after summer, you can still download the bingo card. And there's a bunch, there's actually 25 tiny habits that you can experiment with over the course of summer, all habits that are beneficial to brain health and to our health in general. So you can download the Healthy Summer Bingo cards. The link will be in the description of the video on YouTube. And also, if you're attending live, you will receive the link by email at the end of the session. So, okay, so far so good. I've got quinoa steaming off. I've got some potatoes that will be ready for my dinner dish. Okay, so let's talk about the foundations, the science foundation of what we know supports brain health. I'll be really quick because I really want to focus on showing you how simple it is to cook that food. But what we know is that, number one, brain health and heart health are very much the same, except, oh, and that means basically fiber, good fats, keeping our blood vessels clean, and keeping a lot of anti-inflammatory foods coming in, all the phytonutrients. The difference between heart health and brain health is that the blood vessels in our brains are very small. We have some small blood vessels elsewhere, but those in our brain tend to be much smaller than the ones in our bodies in general. There's a lot of capillaries that irrigate, that bring in the blood, perfuse, I think is the proper word, bring in the blood to the different areas of our brain. And the brain is a lot more sensitive than other parts of the body to differences in excessive blood pressure, to blockages, for example, to those little blood vessels becoming rigid and becoming hard and compressing the tissues in our brain, those brain cells that we have. They don't like being squeezed by the blood vessels, and the blockages can prevent oxygen and nutrients from getting inside the brain. And I mentioned high blood pressure blockages, And of course, there's also issues with accumulation of toxins that we get from our environment, whether they're heavy metals or other kinds of pollutants. Microplastics, unfortunately, are starting to show up in our brains. So our brains are more sensitive than the rest of our bodies. And that's why we can often see people that look like they're otherwise in great health, but their minds are starting to go. It's because that most precious organ, the most delicate organ in our body, mostly our brain, is starting to show signs of having been stressed throughout the whole life. And for a while, different areas of the brain can pick up. If there's a small area of the brain that dies, there's a micro stroke, or there's a blood vessel that's blocked and there's no more oxygen really coming into that area, well, the brain is very plastic, and another region will pick up the slack and help with the work that the first region used to do. However, it adds up, and eventually we run out of substitutes, and we run out of space. And that is why we really benefit from keeping our blood vessels clean, to making sure that we remove those pollutants as much as we can as we go. And every bite we eat makes a difference. Every time we open our mouth, we can put in foods that heal us, that can help us get better. And because of that plasticity, we can hope that the areas that are still in good shape in our brain can get better over time and not lose it, basically. We cannot fully control our environment. So we are getting those pollutants when we're eating, when we're breathing, when we're walking about. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. We can avoid eating some contaminated foods, of course. We can reduce our intake of fish, for example, is one of my personal concerns. But what we can do for sure is we can bathe our body with nutrient-rich foods that heal us. Every bite is an opportunity to nourish and heal ourselves. What do we nourish ourselves with? Here are the top foods. Greens. Greens have so many phytonutrients, including folate, lutein, chlorophyll. I find it really interesting that we do photosynthesis in our body, and the chlorophyll helps chelate some of the toxins we have in our body, which is, I don't know, I think it's really cool. And of course, fiber. We are encouraged to eat, if you look at the Daily Dozen, a fabulous tool from Dr. Michael Greger. In the Daily Dozen, the recommended amount is 2 cups of raw greens per day, or 1 cup cooked. I'm going to show you lots of different ways you can get them in a moment. After the greens, the beans. Beans, beans, beans. Beans not only have protein, like meat, chicken, things like that, beef, but also so many other nutrients that bring in, first of all, fiber. There's no fiber in meat. So the package that beans are wrapped in, all that fiber, is beneficial for our cardiovascular system, also brings in a bunch of phytonutrients, also flavonoids, more folate, in addition to iron, zinc, magnesium. And we should be looking at 1.5 cups of beans per day, so 3 half-cup servings. And that can include bean products, such as tofu, my personal favorite, tempeh, edamame, that's also a bean. Those are just some examples there of beans you can eat. So greens, beans, and berries. The darker the berry, of course, the blueberries and the blackberries, the more phytonutrients. And those flavonoids, and especially in the blueberries, we have anthocyanins that do the constant work of decontaminating our bodies, removing the toxins, and helping us feel better for longer. Some other foods you want to think about: nuts and seeds, about 1/4 cup per day, a little bit more, a little bit less. And there's so many of them. Nuts tend to be expensive, but seeds, not so much. And those tiny little packages have, again, so many nutrients in addition to healthy fats. And what else? Whole grains. In particular, whole grains, they bring in other nutrients as well. They do have protein, by the way. Whole grains have protein. I mean, everything has protein, but whole grains certainly do have extra protein. But mostly they bring in these prebiotic fibers that will help our gut microbiome generate some really wholesome compounds that help clean up our body. And those are really important for us to eat. I'm smelling something that's burning a little bit, so we're going to see what's going on. That's my onions. We're doing well. And the quinoa is fluffing up. We're good. So those are the foods we want to eat every day. And if you have not yet downloaded it, I encourage you to check out this document here called the Green Food Guide. That is a improved version of the Canada Food Guide. But you can see on the Green Food Guide, half your plate filled with vegetables, starting with a layer of greens and a bunch of colorful vegetables, 1/4 of your plate with beans and bean products, including lentils, and about 1/4 of your plate with whole grains. Sometimes, because I eat so much fiber, I have refined grains a little bit, but not all the time. But I like my normal white pasta as opposed to whole wheat pasta. Personal preference. And do not forget to supplement B12. Use seasonings, especially spices and herbs that are very nutrient rich. Nuts and seeds sprinkled on top, and choose water as your drink of choice. I'm going to add the link to the Green Food Guide so you can download it. I love to post it inside a kitchen cabinet so you can refer to it at any moment. And that will guide you to create those healthy meals. But I'm going to do some demonstrations right now. If you're not feeling super confident at improvising yet, I encourage you to check out my new course called Cooking Without Thinking, where I teach how to improvise soups and stews, stir fries, and green bowls, in addition to the basics of plant-based nutrition and how to cook whole grains as well. Okay, so something else we want to say about nutrition. There's foods that we want to decrease and avoid. So I prefer to focus on the things we need to add, the berries, the greens, the beans. We need to add those foods. And if you're still hungry for a little piece of chicken after that, that's your business. The vegan police is not going to rush into your kitchen. However, keep in mind that for brain health, we want to avoid saturated fats, especially those that come from animal sources. But palm oil is also an example of a plant food that has a lot of saturated fat. Better to avoid it. Coconut oil also has a lot of saturated fat that we don't need. So maybe keep those away. Something to keep in mind. Cholesterol is only present in animal foods. Every nutritional guideline in the world pretty much says that we should be reducing and avoiding cholesterol. And those are present in animal foods. So when you have your choice of what to eat, better choose foods that heal us and nourish us as opposed to foods that cause damage. So avoid cholesterol. And keep in mind that home-cooked food is practically always a better choice compared to ready-made food or takeout. The main reason for that is that food that comes from industrial kitchens hardly ever has greens, beans, berries, or vegetables in general in any significant quantity. Much better cook your own food at home, even if it's simple. It will be delicious, healthy, tasty, nourishing, good for you. Okay, let me check on those things over there to make sure nothing is burning. And if you have questions, just put them in the comments below, in the chat if you're attending live on Zoom, and I'll do my best to respond. Okay, let's just shake things off a bit. My potatoes are practically ready there. Yeah, I'll give them another 3 minutes. Or no, I'll just stop this. There we go. I think the potatoes will be just fine. Okay. What am I going to demonstrate today? Any questions? No, we're good. Okay. What am I going to demonstrate today? I'm going to show you 3 different things. I'm going to do overnight oats, show you the routine. This is the breakfast I eat every single day. I switch it up a bit, but basically it's the one recipe that keeps me nourished and going from early in the morning until midday. I will also make my typical lunch bowl, and then I will eat it after the workshop. And I will show you how to make arugula pesto, which is one of my favorite things to eat, and that is what I will combine with those potatoes over there and some other foods. So let's start with the oats. Don't be afraid to eat the same thing every day if it's healthy food. If you're getting a rut and you feel bored, it's fine to look for alternatives. Totally good. But we don't actually need to eat different foods all the time, assuming that the foods we eat are wholesome and are diverse. So there is a concern with having a monotonous diet. For example, if you only ever eat brown rice and tofu every day, every single day of your life, and only that, but nothing else, then yes, I have some concerns about the lack of nutrients in your diet. However, if you eat this kind of basic dish on a repeated basis, but in itself it contains 6 or 7 different brain-friendly ingredients, you don't need to worry too much about monotony, unless, of course, you're bored, in which case you're welcome to look for alternatives. So what I'm going to do first, the overnight oats. I want to say in passing that there's something that enables me to cook really quickly, which is to have my food in jars. And it does take a little bit longer when I come home from the grocery store to top up my food in the jars, but it makes cooking so quick. As opposed to fiddling with a bunch of packages, I'll even show you for those who are new here. I have these jars in the kitchen. Most new kitchens have them. This is where my jars are. I just pull it out and scoop out the food, put the jar back in. It prevents a lot of messes. It also prevents pantry moths, invasions. It's great. So here are just normal rolled oats. If you prefer to use steel cut oats, this is not going to be an overnight thing, but I like to do it overnight. And here are my rolled oats. I'm putting in 1 tablespoon, not very much. I'm adding 1 tablespoon of chia seeds. So another category on the Daily Dozen. Chia seeds are, it's a bit of a cliche to say they're a superfood, but when you add them to your daily nutrition tally, it makes a huge difference in especially omega-3s, also protein, all sorts of different amino acids that are not represented in other foods. Love the chia seeds. And then I'm adding flax, which is also excellent for brain health. And it's a seed also, and it's ground flax. So I buy non-ground, I buy whole flax seeds and then I grind them. You can just buy pre-ground flax, that is fine. if you don't buy a whole, I don't know, 5 kilo, 10-pound package, you don't actually have to keep it in the fridge unless it gets quite hot in your area. So I recommend, just personally, I prefer to buy the whole. I find it less messy, and I grind it every week, but you don't have to do that. It's a bit of a myth that you have to keep it in the freezer. So don't make it extra complicated for yourself. And finally, I'm adding cinnamon. So spices not only taste good and keep us coming back, make us feel more satiated, but they also are a different plant that brings in its own set of phytonutrients. And this took me, like when I do this at night, I actually count as I'm doing it. And rarely does the whole process take me more than 90 seconds. I've put everything here in the bowl, and then I add soy milk. This is just unsweetened soy milk. I also make my own soy milk sometimes, so I use that. I don't know how much I'm putting in. It's about half a cup. And I personally prefer my overnight oats to not be so thick. I add water from the tap like this. I'll show you what it looks like. It's not pretty. There you go. That's it. And this is my breakfast. And then what happens next? I make it at night before dinner. At the end of dinner, when I'm finished doing the dishes and cleaning up, I prepare my oats for the next day. I put them usually in this container here that has a lid, but you can put it on anything. I leave it on the countertop because it's just plants and nothing is going to go bad overnight. I leave them covered just in case. And this is what it looks like about 12 hours later. Hope you can see. Yeah, this is not too bad. And I just mix it up, make it look prettier. And I don't know if I'm going to do this. I've already had my oats today. Why don't I do it? Okay, so I have the spoon here. Now they look like this, which is nicer. And I put them in the microwave because I like my oats to be warm for just a minute. And I'm going to add 3 more things at the time of serving. I add walnuts that are also a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. I will add a handful of blueberries because you need greens, beans, and berries. And I like to have a little sweetener in my oats. I use blackstrap molasses, which contains a whooping 3 milligram of iron per tablespoon. So I put about a tablespoon, and that takes care of about 1/3 of my iron needs every day. That is, it's pretty much the only sweetener that has any nutritional value. So that's why I like to use it. And so I'm going to show you what it looks like in the end. I think that's good enough. I actually let it go for 50 seconds there. So in my oats, still looking the same, I'm going to add, and typically I use frozen blueberries, but I did not want to take my frozen blueberries out and leave them on the counter for a while. So these are just fresh blueberries, handful of blueberries. And let me show you, looks like this. And about a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses. And this is my daily breakfast. So we have the whole grains, the seeds, the flax, which is also a seed, and the spices, the blueberries go in there, and more nuts on top with the walnuts. And I can change things about this breakfast on a regular basis also. If I'm getting a little bit bored, it's possible to find rye flakes as well as barley flakes. If you don't have them at your local big box store, you can probably find them at the slightly more natural food store. Or you can even put some barley, pearl barley in the blender and just break it down a little bit, pulse a few times. So you have barley flakes. You could use cooked quinoa instead of the oats as well. That would be a nice change. Instead of the chia seeds, I really like the chia seeds. I strongly recommend keeping the chia seeds, but you don't have to use them. It's possible also to add hemp seeds in lieu of the walnuts, for example, or chopped almonds, sprinkle of peanuts even would be lovely, or chopped pecans. Pecans, I think, have a bit more saturated fat, but once in a while, not a problem. Switch things around. And if you like other spices, you can also make overnight savory oats, which is another option. I recommend you look that up. There's lots of options out there on the internet. So start your day, and right away you have all of these happy, healthy brain foods that you can start with. Those are it. Let me check if there's questions in the chat. Okay, so about greens, Leslie is asking, when we talk about greens, are we talking only about green leafy vegetables or about any kind of green vegetable? Any kind of green vegetable is good, but the ones that are the strongest, most powerful brain foods and health foods in general are the dark leafy greens, especially those that are cruciferous vegetables like kale, arugula, mustard greens, any kind of choy, choy being the Asian types of cabbage, gaylan, bok choy, Shanghai choy, any kind of cabbage, green cabbage really is a great choice there. So broccoli is also, it's not a leafy green, but I guess you could use broccoli leaves. Collard greens are another example of super powerful green. So nothing against green bell peppers, for example, or zucchini. Useful to eat those, but bring in the cruciferous vegetables top top foods to eat. Why only 1 tablespoon of oat? I usually use a 1/4 cup. Ellen is asking, why only 1 tablespoon of oats? In my breakfast, that makes like a lot of food because I have the tablespoon oats, I have the tablespoon chia seeds, and the tablespoon flax together. To me, and it's already quite a bit of food for me. Like, you've seen what it looks like when it's ready. I can't remember exactly, but I think this is about 400 calories in total. I used to do 2 tablespoons of each, and I wouldn't finish it a lot of the time. So I mean, it's totally up to you. But having less oats allows me to have more chia seeds in there. The chia seeds are obviously a bit more expensive than the oats, but a package goes a long way. 1 tablespoon at a time. It probably takes me about a month to go through a bag, which is, I guess, maybe 2 pounds of chia seeds, something like that. So it's up to you. It's your own preference. You can mix things up. It doesn't look like very much food. Yeah, it's fun. Yes, it's funny. A lot of people use a lot of oats, and I think it's the soaking overnight. It might be the type of oats I use. I'm not sure, but for me, it's a big breakfast. And yeah, I don't know. Your mileage may vary. If you want more, just have more. That's fine. Not a problem. The molasses might get more filling. I do use the berries. Love the frozen blueberries all year round. Yeah, so definitely for those who think, normally I use more oats than Brigitte is doing, that is fine. But you keep in mind that the chia seeds and the flaxseed are definitely more nourishing and nutritious than the oats. Oats are awesome. Oats have a lot of good properties to them, especially something that's special about oats is the presence of soluble fiber. That's what makes oats slimy. So some people maybe don't like oats as a remnant of their childhood because of that slight sliminess. But that is what makes the oats really heart healthy. It's those soluble fibers. I'm not sure what's the soluble fiber content of chia seeds and flax, but flax is a absolute powerhouse with all the lignans that are in there, that are in particular known to be preventive of breast cancer, to be reducing the risk of breast cancer recurrence. So I'd rather take in the flax than take in the oats. And the recommended daily consumption of flaxseed is 2 teaspoons. So I put about a tablespoon, which is 3 teaspoons in my breakfast. So when I'm done breakfast, I feel pretty proud of myself for having a lot of my nutrients in already. If it's the weekend on a Sunday and I have more time, often I will also make a green smoothie, which is basically for me just throwing green things and a few other kinds of fruit in the blender. So you can also have that for your breakfast. Okay, now I will transition to talking about the next thing, which is my lunch bowl. Let me get my bowl right here. Oh, what happened? Something weird happened. My bowl's a bit dirty. Let me just clean it. Okay, here we go. So, okay, I was going to show you with this bowl, but let's be honest, that is not what I actually eat. Actually, I'll take my potatoes out so they don't dry out. Okay. So people who come to mindful eating, so on every other Monday we have eating meditation, and they've seen me eat from this bowl, this giant thing. It comes from IKEA. I think it's $1, and it's the best investment I've made because it fits a lot of greens, and that has, I think, in its own increased my consumption of greens. So here's a little secret. I'm going to show you my lunch green bowl. It's basically a huge nutritarian, Joel Fuhrman style salad. And here is the secret from me. I've discovered recently that I prefer my greens, and I will eat a lot more of them if they are wilted, if they're steamed, if they're soft. I just enjoy them a lot more. So there is no shame whatsoever in getting your greens out of a box, whatever it takes to eat more greens. I love also buying baby greens from the market, the farmer's market. They're awesome. And I'm using almost half the box here, you can see. And that's about, if you squish it between your hands, you can see visually it's a bit more than 1 cup. And I shred them just a little bit so that they're smaller pieces. That will be my real lunch. I'm not going to eat the other thing. You know what? I need a little more. So a box like this makes 2 meals, probably. Okay, and so I feel almost embarrassed to do this, but I'm going to microwave them. I did not realize until recently how wonderful it was. And I just put this silicone lid on top. Then I will microwave my greens for 1.5 minutes. I put in 128, whatever works for you, in the microwave. What else am I going to do with this? If you don't want to put it in the microwave, that's fine. You don't have to. Raw greens are actually a little bit better for you marginally than the cooked ones. But I like to mix things up. Sometimes I have the green smoothie. I might have a salad with dinner, whatever it takes. But the most important thing is to bring in the greens. And if it means you're taking 1 more bite to get the equivalent amount of nutrition, that is fine. So what else am I going to put in there? I'm going to add, so in a green bowl, always useful to also have another vegetable. So I'm going to grate this carrot. I could just slice it, but I enjoy the grated carrot. That's something that would be a good idea to do in a weekend batch cooking session. Don't break your fingers. So ideally, I would also add one more colorful vegetable, maybe slices of red bell peppers, something like that. Here we go. Here's my carrot. Okay, so where is my spinach? Okay, and the idea, how I got started, how I got started with the greens steamed in the microwave is from the Japanese restaurant. We're lucky in Vancouver to have a lot of vegan sushi options. Well, 3. And we really enjoy spinach gomai, which is spinach in a sesame sauce, slightly sweet. And I realized that's just steamed spinach. Why not do this at home? And here we go. This is what my greens look like now. So they don't look quite as pretty, but to me, they're delicious. I'll take a fork and just move them a little bit to the side here. And in my bowl, I'm going to add my grated carrot using the blunt edge of my knife to scrape up the cutting board a little bit. There we go. Okay. And what else do I want in there? Well, I want beans, right? Greens, beans, and berries. So for the beans, I'm using this delicious product for all Canadians. Smoked tofu is available from Sunrise. And this one has sriracha in it. It's got a little bit of a kick, which is another plant, adding some peppers. I'm sorry, knife. I'm going to cut through the tofu here with plastic packaging. I love smoked tofu. If anybody ever had a thing for ham in their life, or for cheddar cheese for that matter, those big chunks of orange cheddar cheese, I find that the smoked tofu really hits pretty much the same spot. And this is a reasonable portion here. You can see what it looks like. And I'm just going to put that on top of my spinach. Had I thought about it a little bit more, I would probably have put the tofu in the microwave at the same time as the spinach. It's not super hot here in Vancouver at the moment. I know some people on the East Coast are smoking hot, so they would probably feel differently. So maybe I would also add a scoop of hummus to this, but not today. And I'm going to sprinkle pumpkin seeds on top because that adds another food. It's seeds are good. Why not? Again, something that comes together quickly. I have some raspberries, so a different kind of berry in my salad. And I'm lazy. I don't need a fancy dressing. I have this here that's called saba. So saba is basically a balsamic vinegar kind of reduction. It's a very reduced, concentrated type of red vinegar. I'm putting, that's probably about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half on my bowl. And this is my lunch salad here that I'm going to eat once we're finished here. So I have the greens, I have the beans from the tofu, and I have the berries. Again, super simple. And I could use different kinds of greens. Sometimes I use spinach. Spinach is not as nutritious as the mix that has the kale in it, but it's also good. And I like to mix things up. I also eat lots of cruciferous vegetables, so I don't lose sleep over it. Instead of the pumpkin seeds, I could use sunflower seeds, hemp seeds. I could use chopped almonds. I could use the walnuts again. I could use any seed really. They're all good. Instead of the raspberries, I could use any other kind of berry. I could throw in a diced apple in there, for example. I could use, I've said red bell peppers, zucchini, cucumber, cherry tomatoes. If I had fresh cherry tomatoes, I would definitely put them on top here. So that's a simple way to get a lunch that does not take long to assemble. Even if you're talking to people like I'm doing right now, it didn't take me very long. And I'm going to eat that for lunch, and that will keep me fed. Oh, something I should add to this, of course. I didn't think about that. Silly me. I need to add quinoa. I was looking at my bowl thinking I'm missing something. I cooked quinoa earlier, and I'm going to fluff it up and add some quinoa to my bowl. That will make it more nourishing, more protein, stick to your bones, prebiotic food. So I'm just adding, oop, there we go, scoop of quinoa. That's better. So now it looks like this. I'm going to redecorate a little bit. So this is not the prettiest meal, but it will be a very delicious lunch for me to have later. And now the third demonstration, and one of my favorite things. So I love pesto. I like not so much traditional pesto. I admit that I'm not a fan of basil or basil, whatever you want to call it, but I love the idea of having a really flavorful green sauce dip spread thing that I can use in my food. So here is what I'm going to do. I'm using my small Vitamix jar. If you have a Vitamix already, and you have a spare $100, I strongly recommend getting one of those because it enables me to mix up sauces, dressings, all sorts of quick things without so much trouble of having to scrape and push down food in the bigger Vitamix jar. I'll show you the regular jar. It's like this. So this is a 64 ounce. This is a 32. And I like using it to do things like sauces. I could have made my pesto in the big jar. However, I would have had to do more, and that would have been a little bit inconvenient. What are we going to put in that pesto? Lots of wholesome, healthy foods. So I call it pesto, but it's not an official Italian grandmother pesto. Don't say that because they would probably disown you. It's in many ways better because what I'm using here, again, boxed greens for the win. It's pre-washed. It's baby greens, so they're less stuff. If it was, so I'm using arugula. If I was using fully grown arugula, I would probably want to blanch it first. Maybe not, but probably. So I'm just going to fill almost all of my blender jar here with the arugula. Okay, that's good. And then I'm going to add herbs. And I have cilantro and mint. It's summer, guys. Mint is just a nice, you don't want to use too much mint. I washed it previously, don't worry. Patted it dry. So I'm putting some leaves of mint in here. And that will really make it a summery dish. In winter, I don't know that I would do this. Okay. And typically when I make this dish, I just use whatever I've got on hand, leftover greens in the fridge, but I bought some greens this morning for the purpose of doing this. I'm just going to remove the yucky bits. So I've chopped a chunk of cilantro here. If I had old, wilted, slightly sad cilantro, it would be the perfect thing to put in here. And if you don't like cilantro, don't use cilantro. I know some of you are against cilantro. Some of you think it tastes like soap. I agree, it tastes a little bit like soap, but it doesn't bother me. So that's totally up to you. But I'm putting the cilantro in there. This will make a really bright tasting sauce. What else am I going to put in here? Lemon. I'm sorry, you can't see my cutting board here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since I'm doing this in the blender, I'm just going to put in the whole lemon. You can make this in the food processor as well. That would work. And if I was really mindful of food waste here, I would have removed some zest and used it as well. But we're doing a little bit quicker. I'm removing the seeds and I'm just putting the lemon pieces in the blender. So more flavor. Yeah, you can use this in the food processor. The traditional way to make pesto is, as the name indicates, with a mortar and pestle. That's great exercise if you have time, if you'd like to do that, be my guest. Okay, here we are. Okay, so now I've got, what did I say? Arugula. So arugula is a cruciferous vegetable. I've got the cilantro, the mint, the lemon juice. I could probably add more lemon juice, but I'm not going to. I'm going to add, using my knife to keep things, I'm using miso for saltiness, and also it's a fermented food. I'm using garlic powder instead of fresh garlic here because I'm not going to eat this right away. And if the garlic powder, if fresh garlic is allowed to sit in the fridge for a while, it becomes a very powerful flavor that I don't want in my dish. Fresh ground pepper. And it's a pesto, which traditionally would have some kind of nuts or seeds. So I'm going to use, I could use hemp seeds, but I'm going quick. I'm using pumpkin seeds here, and I'll add a little bit of walnuts. You could use also pine nuts. You could use some almonds, if all good. And to get things going in the blender, I'm just going to add a little bit of water. I'm not measuring. If you feel like measuring, that's okay. But I'm just putting this like this in the blender, and I feel I'm probably going to need to use the tamper. We'll see. Let's get it going. Use a tool. Okay, so I'm going to push down my ingredients. Yeah, that would have been the reason to use my other blender here. I'll put a little bit more water. Another thing you could do here, what I typically prefer, is that I would make the sauce by doing all the green part without the nuts, and then add the nuts and seeds after, so that there's still a little bit more chunkiness in the pesto, but today it's all going together at once. There we go. So for the sake of expediency, oh no, this is perfect. That's wonderful. I was worried it would be too, I can't imagine that this survived, but it did. Okay. So I have my green sauce. Let me get a little bowl to transfer it so you can appreciate how beautiful it is. There we go. So yeah, I would have personally preferred a more chunky pesto, but this is my sauce for today. So it has a ton of greens, it has the seeds, it has garlic that is also another really powerful, healthy food in it. And I'm going to serve this. So previously I cooked some potatoes. You heard me about that. Let's get a bowl. And I have these potatoes and onions that I cooked earlier. And this is going to be a super simple meal. I'm going to put my onions in there. And I have white beans that I cooked earlier. You could use white beans from a can. That would be perfectly fine. This is kind of a quite typical, I don't know, countryside French dish. And so I have my potatoes here and my white beans, and I'm going to drizzle the green sauce on top. Did I want to add anything to this? No, I think that is again a very, very simple meal. And just to make it cute, I'm going to sprinkle with a little bit of extra pumpkin seeds to add a little extra texture. So not the prettiest dish, but the green sauce is scrumptious and very delicious. And I can't eat it right now because I have my Invisalign in, but I will also eat this probably after my salad over there. So we have the bean, we have the greens, and we've already had a lot of berries today. So those are just 3 super simple meals that we can enjoy and have greens at every meal. Let's wrap up. I want you to not just be sitting and learning today. I want you to take 3 minutes to do this task while I clean up a bit. I want you to go right now, stand up, hit pause, go visit your fridge, open the produce drawer, look in your pantry, and identify at least 3 foods, as many as 10 if you can see them, that look like solid brain foods. Go and do that right now. And when you come back, I want you to write in the chat 1, 2, or even 3 examples of meals you could possibly build based on those ingredients. And I'm going to set a 2-minute timer for you to do that right now. So go ahead, get off your chair and check it out. I'll set a 2-minute timer here. Where's the timer? Okay, well, I'm just going to ask Google for a timer. Hey, Google, 2-minute timer. Yeah. So if you're still seated there, it means that you're thinking about what's in your pantry. I trust that you're doing it. Meanwhile, somebody's asking, does the green sauce freeze well? Totally freezes well, not a problem at all. Actually, that's what I'm going to do myself because I'm going to be traveling for the next week. The key idea is to put it in a container that has straight sides so that it doesn't get, it doesn't crack the jar if you're using glass. And I'm going to do that. I'm also going to freeze the quinoa, and I will freeze most of those beans, but I'm so excited to eat the beans because I just cooked them. They're going to be absolutely delicious. So 1 minute left. You should start typing in the chat. You don't need to hit enter just yet. Start typing in the chat 1 or 2 or 3 examples of meals you're thinking about that could possibly be made with some brain smart ingredients. There we go. So I'm definitely going to enjoy this pesto when I come back from my trip. This is really yummy. And it's got just the right amount of lemon juice in there. I'm quite happy with that. Could have a little bit less water. I was in a rush, but it's still pretty good. I'm actually going to put some of this on my salad. It could be used also as a salad dressing. Lots of things we can do. 5 seconds left. And 3, 2, 1, stop. So if you haven't yet put it in the chat, please write down some meals you could do. I see here a cold pasta salad with pesto, tofu, and greens. Ellen says she has pinto beans, greens, red bell peppers, cucumbers, broccoli, jarred salsa, pistachio nuts. Oh, that sounds amazing. Christine is going to make tempeh chili with brown rice. I love it. Tempeh is another bean product. And in the chili, you could very well add some greens. You don't need to add a ton of them to make a difference. You can, something I like to do in chili or soups or stews is to add, I keep the stems from kale and I chop them very finely, and that gives you the same result as using celery, more or less. So you can add a tiny bit of greens to any soup or stew that you're making. Broccoli, cauliflower, tofu, carrots, stir fry. Yes, Leslie, go for the stir fry. I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing, everybody. And yeah, I love bowls. That's fantastic. A regular apple, green onions, black beans. That sounds like a nice basis for a bowl. So I see that you have those ideas. It's a matter of just putting them into practice. And I think the lesson I want you to take away from today is that you can just implement the simple mindset shift, add brain-friendly foods at every meal. Find a way to fit them in. It doesn't need to be a great quantity. Even a little bit makes a difference. And you can build from there. Add the greens, add the beans, add the berries. You can have them at breakfast. You can enjoy them for dessert. You can enjoy them on a salad. They're always good and make a big difference for your brain health. Add some nuts and seeds. Put in those spices. Don't be afraid. They have a lot of nutrients as well that make a difference. And the whole grains for the prebiotic function. Keep it simple. It's okay to improvise. It's okay to do just the basics, mix things up a little bit. If you don't feel super secure about improvising, I encourage you to come and join my Cooking Without Thinking course. We start at the end of June, and we are going to be looking at, again, the basics, how to make soups and stews, stir fries, and green bowls, and learn to mix it up, but learn to trust yourself. Have the basic foundational nutrition knowledge to know that you know what ingredients to bring together to nourish yourself on a whole foods plant-based diet and enjoy nutritious meals every day that are simple, not flashy stuff necessarily. I insist this is not the kind of food that makes people go, wow. It's the kind of food that you actually cook. And that is what makes a difference, because what you need to know is that what makes a difference is what you do every damn day. What we do every day is what adds up and builds our health, and in particular, our brain health in the long term. Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring.